Hey there, everybody. So today you're joining myself, Derek DiManno, founding advisor, Flagship Asset Services, located here in beautiful Towson, Maryland, in the Mid-Atlantic, for a podcast. And I have my friend and colleague, Aaron, with me. Aaron, if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself, that would be great.
What's going on, everyone? Derek, it's a pleasure rapping with you. Not MWA, but NUA, as we'll get to in a second. We're based here in beautiful San Mateo. It's a little foggy, misty this morning, making sure the flights behind me at SFO land properly. But we're doing great, and I'm really happy to be back on the podcast recording with you today.
Yeah, it's so great to be with you. You know, it's one of the coolest things about what doing this with you is that today we had like snow flurries here, like dancing snow out the window, and felt very Christmas-esque holiday season, right? And of course, you're on the other coast, totally different weather, and like to be able to have this unbelievable technology to connect, and talk about these things is cool. And the weather just so happens, I know is sometimes a conversation filler, but I think is a representation of the ability for us to have conversation and collaborate from the East Coast to the West Coast. And so like, I'm always so grateful for the time I get with you. And I know we're going to talk about some good stuff. And if I'm correct in saying this, I think what we're going to focus on today is the fact that we're coming into the end of the year. Yep. We're in the last month here in December right now. And we're going to talk about some concepts that are applicable all year round, but maybe have a heightened sense of urgency, here at the end of the year. And the first one is something called NUA, which is an acronym and sounds like it could be potentially dangerous or contagious. So, Aaron, can you tell us what in the world NUA is?
Sure. And Derek, before we get started, I want to make a quick mention to your last point. Here in California, Santa doesn't ride in on a sleigh. He comes in on a boat. So we're right here on Foster City on the lagoon. So tonight there's a Hanukkah Christmas celebration.
Wonderful.
In Foster City. Santa arrives by Duffy, this like electric boat that they allow on the water. So anyways, that's how Santa delivers presents here on the West Coast.
No snow needed.
No snow needed. So yeah, that's great. And I'm busy. I mean, we're in December, the final stretches of the year. Yeah. And sometimes things hit the back burner, but this is the perfect time to take care of a flurry of activity. I posted about this earlier in the week. I've been reaching out to my clients. So if you're listening to this, this is a great time to take advantage of some of the things that we're going to talk about today. Let's start with NUA. That stands for Net Unrealized Appreciation. And basically what that is a special tax break that exists for employees of publicly traded companies that have highly appreciated company stock. And that stock could be yours in a 401k or in an ESOP account. And basically what this means is that you've owned the stock for a very long time, ideally, because the value has gone up dramatically. And instead of paying income tax, like we all know when you pull assets out of a 401k, you pay income tax. Instead of that, you can pay capital gains tax on the basis at which you acquired your company stock. Now, capital gains tax, you could say, let's call it 20%. Income tax, or 15, right? 15 to 20% is capital gains tax. Income tax could be 24%, could be 35 or 37%, really depending on your income level. So we're talking about a significant tax savings. Yeah. That's the basic idea. Okay. Net realized appreciation.
All right. So let's unpack this a little bit, because I think if I'm just listening to this, right, my one of my clients is listening, or my aunt or my uncle, and they're thinking like, okay, like all right. So the first piece of it is, okay, do we have the symptoms maybe, right? So NUA, before we even get into all that cool stuff you just talked about, which I do think we should really dig into, like, what are the symptoms? So you mentioned one, company stock, right? And company stock specifically in a tax deferred retirement plan at the company. Is that right?
That
Okay.
is correct.
So I think the first thing is for any of our listeners is like, okay, do I work for a company that provides stock? And is that stock, is it, not necessarily restricted stock options, but is that stock actually in the plan? And so like, if you have the first symptom, then we might be on the right track, that there's something going on. You mentioned something else and it relates to holding period, that you've had it for a really long time. And you said it's appreciated. So I think the key there, right, is that you have stock that's worth a lot more than when it was either granted or purchased. Is that fair?
That's very fair, Derek, because the whole point of this special tax break is that you're able to take advantage of the growth on the investment.
Okay. And then last piece, for you to use this technique, do you have to be retired or retiring, or can you be actively working at the company?
That's another great question. You will be separated from your service.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So
you don't have to be retired.
Okay.
Okay. But you need to be separated from your service, because one of the other requirements is that you roll over, which is leaving your retirements at your company, into a personal account, an IRA or a regular brokerage account for your company stock. So whether you're separated from service or you're retired, that's the thing. And then you have to pull everything out, including your 401k.
Got it.
There's a couple of reasons why somebody might want to leave their money in the 401k.
Sure.
Mostly it's attorneys or people. We're not talking about that today, but so maybe I'll just leave that. There's some very unique reasons why you'd want to, but if you're trying to just take out that company stock, just know that you have to take out the company stock plus your 401k assets that would go into an IRA.
So I mean, I think the whole moving of a retirement plan, that's a whole separate conversation. At LPL, we're an education only firm, so we don't recommend that. We only educate on it. And so I think that's really important to what you're saying, is that you can be actively working, but you do need to be separated service. So like symptoms are company stock, right? Separated service with appreciation. And then you might fit into this ability to be able to do this. Okay. So one thing that I just want to capture is that really simply, capital gains taxes are lower, even at the highest point, than that same individual would generally incur with ordinary income tax. So we're capturing lower tax rates.
Correct.
Okay.
Right.
So that being said, why don't we walk through the mechanics of, Derek worked for a big company. I've now separated from them, whether I am spending my time golfing and fishing, or whether I'm on to another career somewhere else or another job. I have let's say a 401k in our example that has, let's say, like 50 some odd $1,000 of company stock in it. Like, so what does this look like if I sit down with Aaron? What are we looking at? What is the potential opportunity here?
So, well, actually, another thing that you want to make sure that you pay attention to is if your company offers this program. Very few companies, like we're here in the Bay Area.
Okay.
A lot of the tech companies, I don't even need to name names. I could just say the Magnificent Seven. That's the new FANG acronym.
Okay.
They don't offer this program. So it's a lot of legacy programs, or maybe Fortune 500 programs, but not some of the largest tech companies. So you have to contact your HR department to find out if you're even available, if this program is available to you.
Okay, so I've lost count of the symptoms, but there's another symptom.
There's another symptom. There you go.
So if you fit the first couple, whether that's now 2 or 3, then you also, kind of similar to when we were, we had our conversation about mega backdoor Roth and conversions inside a plan, that all of this sounds wonderful, but the plan document has to allow it. So the key here is if you're meeting with a trusted financial advisor or doing this on your own, is that if you meet the first couple of tests, then you also need to make sure that the plan document will allow for the strategy I think you're getting ready to describe.
Amen.
Yep.
All right. Cool. So let's go back to your example.
Yep.
You have a retirement plan through your previous employer. You're now there, you're golfing, fishing, or on to your next job.
Yep.
It's worth $50,000 today.
Yep.
Let's imagine that if we looked at the basis, which means the value at which you received those company stock, not the value today. Yep. The value today is 50,000. That's basis plus the growth.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So let's imagine for just the basis, it's half of that, 25,000, right?
Great.
So you've got 25,000 basis, value of 50,000 of shares. If you were to enact this net unrealized appreciation strategy on the 25,000, you would pay ordinary income tax.
Okay.
Right? Because that was part of your compensation. You've never been taxed on that. So 25,000 would be taxed at ordinary income tax rates.
Mm-hmm.
But then all the growth, the extra 25,000, instead of at that higher tax rate, is taxed at the capital gains tax rate.
Mm-hmm. Which could be 0, 15, right? Or as high as 20 if you're a very high earner, correct?
Correct. Yep. Correct. And okay, well, that's another, Derek, I mean, I think you mentioned just how complex this is. That's another consideration. So when you enact this strategy, really depends on, like, for example, if you didn't work this year, you've been golfing and fishing, and you've got this old plan with the stock in it. This year, by the end of the year, is a great year to do this because you've got no income. Because your income, as we know, determines your capital gains tax rate. Yeah. So just another consideration to make. So if you got low income, it's a great time to do this because that 25,000 of growth, right? That's hit at the capital gains tax.
So I guess that I mean, what I'm hearing is that there's multiple considerations that are both at the investment and at the tax level, and then at the larger holistic planning level when you do this, right? And so this is an awesome strategy, it sounds like, if it meets like the standard at every one of those buckets, right? This is not like, okay, well, this is an awesome investment technique, or this is an awesome tax technique, or this gets me closer to my retirement goal, or whatever that might be. This is like, it's gotta click on all cylinders to work.
It does. It does. Yep. And here's the neat thing about it too, Derek. When you move the shares out of your retirement account into a non-qualified, that's advisor speak, into a non-retirement type of investment account, you receive a new tax basis. So you've got to step up in basis. So your 50,000 shares is now worth 50,000. So if they were to grow further and you sold them, here's another, sorry, this is actually a great point. You don't have to sell your company shares. A lot of clients love their company they worked for, don't want to actually sell those shares. So typically when you have a rollover or a 401k to an IRA, they write you a check and you don't get to keep any of those specific investments in the plan. Yeah. With NUA, you actually keep those company shares. You get a new cost basis. And so if they drop in value, you can actually capture a loss that same year, potentially. Yeah. Right. From the time that you do the strategy. Yeah. So
well, it's cool. Aaron, I think you shared with me kind of like an example, like a white paper type example. And maybe when we post this, we can add a link. So if anybody thinks that this might work for them and is trying to walk through it, there would be some resources, and of course they could reach out to you, but for people that are watching this and just would like to engage, at arm's length with some of the information we're sharing, we can do that. Now, one of the things you just mentioned is, well, we kind of are talking about taxes, and you were talking about gains and so forth. So, coming into year end, and we may have talked about this together, truthfully, I start to lose track of some of these conversations because they do overlap a little bit, but tax loss harvesting. And yep. I think there's tax loss harvesting and the process of doing that and the benefits of doing it. I think a lot of times people have misunderstandings about it. So if you'll bear with me, and I think I maybe explained this before, but in a year that you have capital, so we're talking about investments outside of a retirement plan, capital gains or capital losses, there's both short-term and long-term. Okay. And in the case you're talking about this NUA strategy, so what we're looking at is long-term capital gains, right? Investments that have been held longer than a year. There's also short-term capital gains, which are investments that are less than a year, less than 12 months. And so when you sell an investment that has a short-term or long-term gain, right, you pay ordinary tax on short-term gains and long-term capital gains rate on long-term gains. And if you have short-term losses, they offset short-term gains. If you have long-term losses, they offset long-term gains. And I think most people say, okay, yeah, I got that. And then if there's anything left over, they say in that year, I take a $3,000 deduction from my income. And I would say that most people that have been investing and have money outside of retirement plans, that's what they would recant to me. The piece that I think is often missed that is potentially an opportunity for clients and individuals here at year end is if you harvest losses and you don't have gains right now to offset. Yes, it's true that they offset like to like, but then if they're left over, they offset across. We get our deduction. And then maybe the biggest thing is, as long as it's properly done when you file your taxes, we can carry over those losses. And that's the big thing. So if you think about one, let's say the pandemic year 2020, what some of these positions like Amazon and Microsoft look like if they were bought at the bottom, they had massive gain in them, right? So having some bank losses helps. Over time, even in your strategy, Aaron, that you're talking about, where we took our $50,000 of stock and reset, let's pretend we don't sell it now, but in 5 years or 10 years, I don't know, maybe we're paying for our daughter's wedding or our granddaughter's wedding, and we want to sell some of those positions. Well, now we have gain. And instead of paying capital gains tax, it would be great to pay no tax because we had banked some losses. So, I just think that's a really great opportunity that gets overlooked and is a lot of times thought of as a 12-month strategy. And I know that you're doing it, with your clients all the time and talking about it. So I'm sure that but for anyone that maybe is not connected to someone like you, Aaron, that's doing that, I mean, it's a real opportunity, right? To lay into the bigger strategy. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that or.
Yeah, I mean, it's table stakes for advisors like us for helping clients, Derek, right? Because, I mean, first of all, talk to your CPA. We work with our clients' CPAs all the time in conjunction. I'm on the phone with them. Looking at tax returns, talking with CPAs about specific strategies to make sure that we're capturing all the losses possible. But every year we have the opportunity to rebalance and reset these non-retirement investment accounts. Yeah. And you can only deduct $3,000 of loss every year. You can carry forward in perpetuity. You want to ask a master of that? Ask our last president, Donald Trump, because like you could do that on real estate, for example. That's a capital loss. And so you can see how that plays out every year. You just don't want to wind up in court. And your advisor in conjunction with your CPA will make sure that you never wind up in court. So, which is the importance of hiring professionals that you know and trust.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
It's great. That's a really good point, is a perpetuity thing, and so,
yeah, because it's not 1 year, Derek. You have to do this. It's watching the stuff every year, right? Because so here's the rule. We've kind of jumped right in on how tax loss harvesting works, but just I don't think, most of our clients lean on us to know these particular details.
right.
But so if you're in an investment account and you like a position, or let's imagine you're in index funds and you're in large cap growth stocks. So you sell that position, you realize a loss. Well, you can invest in something just like it, and then you have to wait 31 days essentially, and then you could jump right back into that position that you were in.
Right.
So this is a way that we're generating alpha in our clients' taxable investment accounts. And we do this on a regular basis. LPL, if you have an LPL account, an MWP, we can set this up automatically. It just happened December 1st. So thank you, LPL, for allowing us that. That's a plug right there for you guys at the MWP team. Make it even easier for us as advisors to manage this. But it's one of the most important tools, because it's not what you pay in tax this year. It's what you pay in tax over a lifetime, right? And that's kind of my line. A lot of CPAs, they're saying, hey, well, we're looking to maximize taxes this calendar year. But really, tax loss harvesting is something that you do every single year. And because that, along with Roth conversions and contributions, we are looking to reduce your overall lifetime tax obligation.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, Aaron, there's like two things in there that I think are really great, is that the comment about maximizing it over a lifetime and about this year. I mean, my observation, my experience, like just as like a human, is that a lot of times we function in like a zero sum game. Like that's how we do the math, is it's like an all or nothing. But the cool thing with tax loss harvesting is it can help now and help along the way, right? So I think that if you're, for anyone that's not actively pursuing a strategy like that and has non-retirement accounts, it's worth probably, having some conversation about, for sure. Yeah. And then the other piece that regarding the planning and the Roth conversions and all that sort of stuff and doing these things is the sphere of what is tax strategy, right? Not talking necessarily about filing the 1040 and your estimated taxes. I'm talking about making decisions in a way based on the income that are, or we believe, our highest and best use. So I guess what I'm getting at is that if you're in a situation and you are an individual like former President Trump or Mitt Romney or any of these people that have lots of passive income, right? Then they're working in these capital gains rates, and these things work very well. But for someone that would consider themselves, quietly wealthy, well off, but hasn't done that, they have the ability to manage taxes, maybe not to the level that some of these famous people that we mentioned do, but certainly in a smart way. And it's worth looking at. And I mean, it's coming into the end of the year, and I would say even if doesn't happen now, then it would put it on the list to make sure it's part of the planning that goes on.
Yes.
So anyway.
Eric, this is table stakes. This is table stakes for every advisor, for every single person who has an investment account that's not in a retirement account. The tax loss harvesting is table stakes to make sure that you are maximizing your investments and your overall tax liability for your lifetime.
Yeah.
I have a client, Derek. I want to share this example. I have a client who came to us with a non retirement account. Several positions had like $80,000 of gain in every one of these positions
Mm-hmm.
because they'd never done any. I mean, and the account wasn't even that large. It was several $100,000,
Mm-hmm.
which, by the way, is large to a lot of people, but just in terms of what it could have been.
And it was lots of gain, a very high percentage of gain.
High percentage of gain. So guess what? Congratulations, right? You have a ton of gain. You've done great investing. But where you've missed the boat is this tax loss harvesting, because when you sell, get into a new position, and then get back into your position after those 31 days, well, you've reset your cost basis. Mm-hmm. So when you go to sell in the future, it's not pure capital gains. So that way in future years, you also have the opportunity to realize losses, right? Mm-hmm. Because that we know the market does this. So you constantly want to be rebalancing the portfolio, because again, over the lifetime, because if not, the client came to me, he was 69 years old. So, and he's now 74. We've spent the last 5 years mm-hmm. with a comb and, the brush and the tooth and nail going through this account year by year, figuring out how much we can add on to his capital gains tax liability just to bring this portfolio back into alignment, right? Because not only you're not capturing losses, but then the portfolio is all out of whack, right? And that's against modern portfolio theory, keeping your investments in different asset classes. So tons of reasons.
I love that example. And Aaron, this thing, it's a thought that I had earlier and quite honestly lost as we were talking, but one of the things is I feel like whatever's happening now, human nature is, well, that's going to continue to happen. Right. And so I think a lot of times when you talked about the ebb and flow of investments, even if that ebb and flow is to a rising tide, what gets lost is the idea that, well, we're down now, we've ebbed, and there's an opportunity before it flows again, because it will. And when it does, and you want to sell, we've missed the opportunity to maybe wash out some of that, right? And so in your example, you're talking about somebody that held a position for a long time. And of course, if all they wanted to do was pass that along, it's not a problem, right? Because then they pass away and they get a step up, and we can talk about that another time. But when they actually want to use it or diversify, all of a sudden it becomes the reality and pain of paying taxes to sell. It becomes this major hurdle that, like you said, you end up doing that Jurassic Park thing, like combing with a brush and a picking out like these little pieces that you can do it. So, I mean, I'm sure that your client's very grateful, and that's good, important work. And I think also it's good, important work to acknowledge the fact that we see these trends and that there is potentially some opportunity. So, I mean, we really just have pounded that one, right? So I was just like, I don't know if there's any meat left on the bone for that one. I mean,
I got one more, Derek. And by the way, this was supposed to be, 15 minutes, and here we are like an hour later, right? It's pretty much how we roll.
Yeah.
Obviously, we like what we do and we love helping people. So, the final thing I'll say is that different organizations, I won't bother mentioning them by name, but a lot of them beat up advisors for fees and whatnot. Well, there's been numerous studies by asset managers and companies, including the organization that started passive index funds. So if you don't know them, right, saying that tax loss harvesting creates about a 1% on average every single year, a 1% alpha, like growth to your portfolio by tax loss harvesting. And you know what that, coincidentally, what that 1% is? Your advisor fee, right? So in terms of talking about why would I work, not on our agenda today, but why would I work with an advisor? Why would I pay 1% when I can just do it on my own?
Sure.
Well, things like the Roth conversion, things like the tax loss harvest, things like the net unrealized appreciation. These are all strategies where I feel that our value really supersedes what we're charging clients, because it has to be fair to clients. It has to be valuable, has to be worth it. And this is one of those things that is absolutely worth it and, pays for itself. Dollars on the penny.
Yeah. Yeah. That's cool, Aaron, for sure. And we all want to bear good fruit in our relationships, right? You know, with our families and with our clients. And you keep saying table stakes. I mean, it's an important thing, and I'm glad we got a chance to talk about it today. And I think the cool thing is, if you're with the right person, or team or whatever, that that you have confidence in, and they're doing this, you really don't need to know all these nuances. I mean, there's an element of guidance that occurs, and of course there needs to be an element of always of understanding. So I guess with that, we've covered NUA, and we've covered tax loss harvesting, potentially again. I'm like a goldfish, short memory, I guess. So if we did it twice, that just tells you how top of mind it is, and appropriate for year end. And so I guess with that, maybe we sign off for today, and we look forward to doing some more of this, if not before the end of the year, certainly in the new year.
Derek, you got to rip us off the Zoom recording, man, because we're always digging up gems between our conversations. So grateful for you, and grateful for our time together, and grateful that we have the opportunity to serve our clients.
Yeah. Thanks, Aaron. You have a good rest of your day.
All right. Take care.